Okay, here we are getting ready for the ring. It is
You should show what the car looks like.
okay. Let's look.
The car is
Look at the supply, extensive
a
supplies,
few water bottles.
water bottles, extras, bike. Don't forget to turn your computers on.
Yeah, this is part of my checklist.
It's not that cold.
No,
Actually, feels pretty.
feels great.
The weather feels pretty great.
I'll probably be upset about how much I'm wearing almost immediately.
It's 3:52.
It's not on.
No surprise, you are ahead of schedule.
Not by much. All right, we have started.
All right.
Give me a kiss. Give me a kiss. Give me a kiss.
Mwah.
Take this up a little bit. Make sure everything. Do I look like I'm missing anything?
No, you got 2 wheels, your bike, your helmet, your light.
Tightened helmets.
Off for a 4 a.m. departure.
All right.
Okay. See you at stop A. And he's off into the woods.
A little bit optimistic about
Yeah.
I think I definitely worked harder than on this section than last year. This section is such a hard section. So it was good though. Like I felt like I rode more stuff than I rode last year. Felt like I was going faster. I mean, I'm sure that I burned some matches. There were definitely some efforts that, I think were well thought through. Like in order to go fast enough, I need to do that. But it definitely means.
So you're getting more hydration?
Yeah, the hydration worked perfect. I didn't have to go to a stream or anything. My hydration pack worked pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
So that was good.
How's your nutrition?
I peed 1,000 times.
Okay.
Which, that's probably right.
Good. You're eating?
I haven't really eaten anything.
Okay.
I was maybe going to have a Coke and some chips right now.
Sure. Do you want to sit down? You can sit down.
I got to take
Oh.
these off.
You look pretty good. Mm. Are you taking any video or no video?
I'm going to put the camera on for one section.
Okay. So you had a substantial period of time in the dark.
I'm sorry, what?
A substantial period of time in the dark, huh?
Yeah. It was dark. I hiked. That happens.
Okay.
It's very weird, like figuring out the pacing. Like this last mile is on like a gravel road where I'm doing 20 miles an hour. The previous bit, I'm hiking at 1 mile an hour.
Yeah.
Right? So trying to say when I'll be here.
So you think you'll be on the timeline at the next stop? You
I
think?
think so.
Okay.
Just got both things.
All right. See you at stop B.
All right. Stop B. You are a real sweetheart. Hey, how are you?
Hi.
Hi.
Here's your stuff. I had a couple chips.
I think that's gonna be all right. I don't think I'm gonna eat all those chips. Oh my gosh! So that section is called Waterfall because there's about a 0.6 mile hike that's at 30% grade.
Ooh.
Like you basically are doing stairs, but with your bike, and there were 2 down trees that you couldn't go by.
And you had to like walk all the way around the trail.
Find some way around, you know, whatever. I know Lance had mentioned there was a down tree, and I think another one must have fallen. I mean, I am like in deep acceptance of just like, yeah, you're just gonna be hiking for, like, in my mind it's like, oh, I'm gonna be hiking for an hour. It took a half hour.
Yeah.
But like, there's one bit, and I'm like, I'm gonna pedal my bike once here. Like, got on and like, but I mean, realistically, you could spend that half an hour.
This was like a large walk section.
Yeah.
Well, I walked a long way to get here.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing that. It's nice weather.
Yeah. And there's no cars on the road.
I'm like totally worried it's gonna rain.
Whatever. It is what it is, honey, right? You can't change that. I think 4 should be easy to get to because it's right on the main road. But 5, I think I'm going to try to get to early in case I have to drive around.
A, B, we're at B. You mean C? You mean like the next stop?
The next stop should be easy to get to, right? Stop C, number 4.
What?
Because it's right off of the road, right? I remember that one. But 5, I drove from 4 to 5 in back roads last time to pick you up. I'm sure that's closed. So I think I will have to drive around to get to 5. So we'll see. Okay. It makes me nervous that this was closed.
This is the worst one, like when we...
Yes, this was the worst one.
Yeah.
6 was the worst one, but we're not doing 6, right?
I thought this was actually like worse to get to even than...
So hopefully no one touches my car.
What's that?
I just pulled it over by the road closure thing, right?
No problem.
Okay. I had a little picnic lunch.
I know I'm supposed to eat a sandwich. I don't really want to eat a sandwich.
Okay.
I love the waffle.
The Stroop waffles?
The Stroop waffle.
Okay.
Like, it's like a little salty, but also like savory.
Here, show it like you can do a promo.
Stroop waffle. The ring food of champions?
Can I dump the liquid out of that? No? You want me to take it back?
I really prefer you didn't.
Okay.
Like, I'm not 100%. I think I'll have enough liquid, but like, it would be a shame if I like didn't.
Liquid's heavy. Drink as much liquid as you can. Right, because liquid's heavy.
This one is
okay. You still look pretty good.
I mean, I feel okay. I like, you know.
Just a lot of hiking.
I haven't crashed.
Oh, good.
Knock on wood. You know, been doing fine. Well,
It's trash.
good.
Okay.
I don't think I want a sandwich. All right, trying Massanutten Ring, take 2. So this is me trying to do the ring again. Last time I had the camera from the beginning and I quit right there, Edinburg Gap. Today, I didn't put the camera on until Edinburg Gap. So hopefully this means that we're actually going to finish, but it's not a done deal. Yeah, so I would say we have, what do we have left? In theory, what we have left is supposed to be quote unquote easier. There's this first climb out of Edinburg Gap, which I reconned and did it while I was kind of fresh and wasn't that bad fresh, of course, I'm now deep into the ride, so that's a bit different. As you can maybe see, the weather is fucking beautiful. We've gotten really fortunate. It very briefly spit on me a couple hours ago like it was going to start raining, but that only lasted for like 10 minutes. A little windy, but it's not too bad in the woods. If anything, I don't know, maybe the direction's helping. Doesn't really matter that much. I'm going so slow. So yeah, what have we done differently? So in October, I tried and at 14 hours bailed at Edinburg Gap there. There were a couple of reasons I bailed. One, I was pretty tired. Two, unfortunately, there was rain in the forecast. And three, like, I had maybe been overly optimistic about how fast I might be. So, you know, kind of mentally, I wasn't prepared to be out for 18 or 19 hours that it was looking like. So this time, I mean, I'm hoping I'm faster. I think my pace so far is actually faster. But I'm also mentally, you know, had prepared to be out a fair bit longer. But beyond that, I have made various changes that, you know, may have improved things. So my training was definitely different. So training in the fall, I basically did a lot of zone 2 mountain biking. The weather was really nice. I kind of was like, well, if I just have a ton of volume, that'll be enough. And that really wasn't. I didn't have endurance problems exactly, but I definitely had snap problems where I didn't really have that much snapper power. At the time, you know, some of that I blamed on being older, which there is a aspect of that that's accurate. I mean, even when I train hard, my FTP just is not that high compared to, you know, 10 or 15 years ago, pre-ablation, pre-being old. But, you know, you can do a better job of maximizing what you have. And for this ring attempt, my training included basically a lot of intervals. So my basic setup was Tuesday, Thursday intervals, weekend long ride, and then fill in various rides in between. And I kind of went with Tuesday threshold day, Thursday 30-second interval day, and slowly over my build, I tried to both up the duration for the threshold and then, you know, the number of intervals. All right, I'm gonna walk this, and we're gonna turn off the camera because it's boring to see me walk this. I think I'm done with the climb, which is nice. Yeah. And now I can't ride these rocks, which is ridiculous, but it is a little late in the day and I'm a little tired. So in theory, this stretch that we're doing, which I have reconned, is, I mean, I kind of called it ring light. It's not the most punishing part of the ring. It's still got tech in it. It's not the most technical part. And it doesn't have the brutality of the constant up and down ridge line. So there'll be a little bit of that, but like Short Mountain or Jawbone, for example, are just relentless, where, you know, you go 20 feet up, 20 feet down, 20 feet up, 20 feet down. And a lot of the time, neither the up or the down is rideable. And, you know, it's kind of, that I find to be the most punishing stuff. So we got some downhill here. I think it's net downhill all the way to Woodstock Tower. There'll be like a couple little uphills. There'll definitely be some rocks, but it's, I say, not crazy. So in terms of like what I did differently, I talked about the workouts. So I've definitely been doing intervals, and, you know, like my peak week, for example, I think I did 6 by 12 threshold intervals on Tuesday. And then on Thursday, I did a workout that net had 6 sets of 12 30-second intervals with, I think, 35 or 40 seconds of rest. And for me, those were done, I did them at like variable wattage. So, you know, something like, what was it, like 350, 370, and 400 watts, which, given that my FDP is probably around 265, you know, that's working pretty hard. So to do 72 30-second intervals was a big ass workout. And then that same week, I think was the week we did an 8-hour ring recon ride. So that was like my long weekend ride. And then one of the other, it's kind of a change. I mean, for my last ring, I had been doing some bouldering, some climbing. But I mean, I think since then I've been doing even more. And, you know, that time I was probably like doing mostly V2s and V3s. And I'm not like that much better, but I'm mostly can, you know, complete the flash like V3s, do a lot of V4s, and kind of work on some V5s. So my climbing has come along. Like a typical week, I might have done, you know, 3 hour-and-a-half sessions, you know, so some are like 4.5 or 5 hours of climbing, you know, plus often, you know, 15 plus hours of riding. So, you know, I credit the climbing with some hand strength probably, and just general kind of like core strength. So the amount of time spent pushing the bike on this ride so far is ridiculous. And, you know, if you don't have strong arms and core, you know, that's just not going to be happening. Or it's going to destroy you. I mean, I'm borderline. I don't think I was destroyed by it, but that definitely was taking its toll. I mean, the hands, the part that are pushing, is pretty hard, you know, pretty tired. My, you know, arms from like extending out are kind of tired, and for sure, like my core from like leaning into the bike is pretty tired. One thing that I didn't really do any hike specific stuff. I mean, I tend to, you know, take the dog for long walks with my wife a few times a week usually, so we get in a little bit of, neighborhood walking, but that's not very robust, and it's certainly not walking on technical terrain. So, I mean, I guess I wasn't really preparing specifically for that. Okay, so what else have I done differently? Well, so probably the biggest thing here was like a logistics thing. So last time I basically put out like 6 drop points. The drop points were using bear canisters from my friend Lance. He let me borrow those. And honestly, the logistics of that sucked. Just from the standpoint of setting up the bear canisters took so long. Like, it is not easy to ride around in this park. Getting to the various points where the road intersects the trail, it's hard. It took hours. That was hours on the day. Make sure we're on the Massanutten Trail. That was hours on the day that right before you're about to do the ring, so you're like exhausted, from that setup, and then having to go get them sucks. So, last time what we did, my wife was a angel and came with me, and she saw where we did all the drops because we did the drops together, and then she ended up just picking up the drops as I was riding because she wanted to save time and not have to, like, after I finished, go back and get the drop points. Anyway, so we decided if she was going to come anyway, which she volunteered to do, and like drive around a lot on the day I was doing the ring, like, why not just be the pit crew? So that is what we've ended up doing today, and it has worked out mostly beautifully. There was a couple of minor caveats. So we discovered accidentally on the fly that a couple of the access points for our planned meetups were closed, like the road was closed. So as an example, my wife ended up having to hike 2 miles to meet me at one of the drop points, which, was not part of the original plan and was a little stressful, honestly, of like getting a text of like, hey, the road is closed. I won't actually be able to get you supplies. And then of course she came through and, was a trooper and, hiked a couple of miles to bring me, water bottles and some Coke and chips. And then we think that maybe actually the upcoming one, the road might be closed. So that's one minor inconvenience of the support van plan. But so many other things about it have been like way, way better, right? So the ability to just load the van full of whatever I might want versus the drops where you have to kind of pack exactly what you want, and having the van have potentially, spare parts, spare wheel set, if I have a spare derailleur in there, derailleur hanger, and then for another thing that's really nice is like the GoPro. So I could just put the GoPro on for like one stretch really easily because it was just stored in the van. Whereas I wouldn't have really wanted to put the GoPro at a drop. So if I was going to GoPro, I had the GoPro with me all day long, which, it's not really, it's not that uncomfortable, but it's also not that great. It's one more thing to manage. Managing it on this one leg that should be, in theory, a relatively easy leg. Here it's kind of like keeping my mind in the game late in the day. It's a nice distraction versus like wearing it all day. It kind of wears on you. And another similar thing is, there are certain sections of the ring that, for me, I would struggle to drink with my, water bottles, just because, taking a hand off and grabbing a water bottle, in a super technical section can be a pain in the butt. So what I ended up doing was, bringing, a hydration pack and wearing that. But I don't like wearing the hydration pack for, 17, 18 hours. That gets pretty heavy, wears on my back a little bit. I'm not that practiced with wearing it to be able to wear it all the time. But so I just wore it for a couple of the sections where I thought it would be most useful to be able to drink from the hose instead of from whatever. And that worked out really well, and I could just stuff the hydration pack back in the van, and then use it on the sections that I wanted to use it on. So yeah, just in general, the logistics of that are really great. And, it's nice, obviously, to have the support of somebody. It's also just nice, when you're out here alone all day, seeing your, loved one and getting, okay, which way am I supposed to be going? This is super unclear. I think I'm going this way. So that's kind of some logistics differences. I think having seen the ring from my last attempt, and then I did actually recon the section that I didn't get to before. So I've actually this time I have actually ridden every bit of trail. That it's not any big surprise to anybody that that's helpful. That's helpful along a couple of dimensions. One of the dimensions it's helpful on is not getting lost. So the first time I did it, I definitely spent, I probably burned somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes either searching for where the trail was, or in one case getting lost. Whereas, knock on wood, today, I think the worst I had was at a couple of intersections, spending 30 seconds verifying which way was the Massanutten Trail, because I hadn't remembered it super well. There are a couple intersections that are a little bit goofy, even with a nav, GPS and all that. And then I would say the other thing from having tried to do it once, is, understanding what pacing made sense. So my previous attempt, my philosophy was sort of just take it relatively easy. You're gonna be out here all day, enjoy yourself. Don't rush anything. There's no need to rush. And by the time I got 20 miles in, I was already really slow, and kind of essentially in a hole that I never got out of. I think that I was probably, maybe an hour slower. I think, so today, I was definitely a lot more diligent about, trying hard. Not, crazy hard, but not wasting time. Trying to push it a little bit and ride some things if I thought I could. The climb out of Beach, for example, I remember having some regrets about how much of that I walked last year, because I'm in retrospect, it was all rideable. And, today, I rode all of it. I had one dab, but aside from one dab, I did not push the bike at all. And, that took, that definitely burned a match. For sure, I, like had my heart rate way above zone 2 and whatever, but that was kind of like a strategic decision about how to do the pacing based upon the previous experience. And then I think, essentially this back half, some of it, I'm not sure how much faster, I could do it exactly. So, there's a little bit of a speed limit to some of the parts. Some of those very janky parts that I talked about on like, shorter jawbone where, I kind of have to walk the whole thing. I mean, I guess I could hustle walk versus casual walk, but I'm not sure how much that's going to really affect the speed. So I don't think my overall speed today on like every section has necessarily been significantly faster, but that first 25 miles or whatever, I definitely had more urgency, and I think that's going to pay off in being a little faster. And then I say like I'm more prepared for being out here a little longer, and at least so far, I mean, I think that in spite of going faster and like working a little harder, I feel like I have more energy than I did last attempt when I quit. I think I tell myself like, oh, I could have kept going, but part of quitting for sure was being pretty low energy. If something was really on the line, I'm sure I could have kept going, but it's one of those things of when you have a couple of, when you have choices, especially if you have like a good reason like weather coming in to quit and you don't feel so great, those definitely combine to making you decide to pull the plug. Whereas, I think it's not like I feel fresh as a daisy. It's, very deep into the ring and I'm, tired, but I'm also not in like zombie mode. So that's good. Other things that I changed, I actually changed some things about my bike. So on my last ring attempt, I guess I was really worried about tire durability and grip and like having like a tire setup that I really could trust. So I was actually running like a 2.8 front, which like barely fits in the fork, and I think it was like a 2.8, maybe it's like an Ardent or something like that, like something that's like or maybe it's a Recon, something that's like a not super slow tire, but compared to what I usually run, and it just felt slow. I think in back I had maybe like a knobby nick or something like that was not especially slow, but anyway, I felt like my tires just felt slow. So in the early winter, I decided to start testing out whether or not I could use a faster, more XC style tire that would survive. And I started running these Dubnitals on my bike. And honestly, I should knock on wood, right? They could not be better for my use case so far. Like I have ridden them in all conditions in the shed, which is, crazy. I did a recon ride of, 8 hours on the ring, and I am now, deep into the ring today, and so far they, are grippy enough. They feel like they roll fast. It's not like I've done a test, but my understanding is that, they test as basically a pretty fast XC tire. So, you know, I mean, hope I'm not cursing myself and like, you know, end up getting like a flat or something here at the end. But actually, one of the things about that strategically is that knowing that I'm running tires that are not like the most durable changes my choices a little bit in a way that I think is actually beneficial. So, you know, I think when you have tires that you like feel like are like bulletproof, you know, you're more likely to just send it on things. And, you know, when you have tires that you feel like you need to protect a little bit, you know, you're like making slightly different choices. And for a ring attempt, you know, being out here for, you know, 17, 18 hours or something like that, riding some of the gnarliest, most tech around, you know, those decisions add up. So the fact that like I have tires that are making me think like, oh, do I want to do this move, is actually a good thing to me. Because most of the time doing that move, you know, is only going to save you a second or two. But when you do 100 of those, especially when you're tired, you know, even with good tires, you eventually mess up. And, you know, that can end your day. So in spite of having, you know, what are in theory grippier tires last time, I feel like 2 or 3 either like endos or crashes, nothing that was like horrible, but things that could have gone badly on my last attempt. And again, knock on wood, today has been basically clean. I think I've maybe had my shoes flip a few times, but I don't think I've had, you know, an actual riding mishap. And I think a lot of that comes from, you know, I've been just a little bit more cautious. It's not like I'm not riding stuff, but, you know, the threshold for deciding, because everybody out here, I mean, there's wild stuff out here, right? I don't care who you are, there's gonna be stuff that you walk. And, you know, all it's done for me having different tires is like change that threshold slightly, in a way that I feel like, you know, contributes to, you know, safety and success. Which, you know, it's kind of funny that you couldn't just do that with regular tires, but, you know, that psychology seems to be working for me. And then I guess one other bike setup thing, which is kind of funny. I've gone with like, you know, cross-country tires from like more, you know, enduro kind of maybe setup tires, and I've done the opposite with like my front brake, where, you know, I've installed, so I run Magura brakes, and I normally run MT8 brakes, which are like their light XC brakes. And Magura makes downhill bike brakes or enduro brakes, the MT7s, which have basically the same form factor. They just have, you know, it's a 4-piston design instead of a 2-piston design, which, you know, essentially just means a little bit more power in the front brake, which contributes to having a little bit less hand pump. You know, I have hopefully, you know, strong hands from climbing, trials, whatever, but it's still the case that I don't practice doing, you know, long descents in my local trails. And, you know, you do a long descent out here, and, you know, eventually your hands are complaining about all the braking. At least that's my experience. And, you know, I experimented and found the MT7 brake, you know, allows me to, you know, use a little less force and get the same brake power, and, you know, therefore my hands are a little less pumped out, which, you know, adds up over the the course of the day. Know that coming up, I have, at the end, the Signal Knob descent in the dark, the very last thing I'm doing. And, my hands are going to be as baked as they ever have been. So, any extra help I can get from my equipment is nice there. And, it's something ridiculous like they weigh an extra 50 grams and work better. I honestly feel like a little ridiculous for not having done that earlier. Because I have experience with MT7s are what I run on my trials bike. So I'm very familiar with that brake, that setup, how good it is. And, I know how to bleed it, set it up, and get really good, results from it. So anyway, I think those are really the big, and I guess I did also change shoes. So I got some recommendations from the guy who holds the FKT for the ring on the Shimano shoes that he uses, and I replaced I had some specialized shoes that were like kind of enduro shoes, which I liked. They were a little heavy, and maybe they were robust, but they were maybe not the best for hiking. I mean, you could hike in them. They weren't going to fall apart, and they had good protection. But these Shimano shoes, I think these are like GE9s or something like that, are significantly lighter. They have better grip, and for me, they've been pretty comfortable. I haven't been wearing them that long, and I hadn't been hiking in them that much. So I'm getting a little bit of like heel slip, just a little bit, causing some rub that, I don't know, might bother me by the end of the day, but it's currently not like enough of an issue to even, do anything with it. I considered putting some tape on it or something like that, but it seems fine. All right, I think I've talked enough for this stage. What do I have left? I guess that's an important thing, right? So I'm currently headed from I think it's the Edinburg Gap to Woodstock Tower, and then after Woodstock Tower, there's more trail that's kind of similar to what I'm on right now. I consider that also to be quote unquote ring light, in that it's not the full-on janky thing. And then that drops you into kind of a gravel road, actually, where there's pretty, by the end of the day, pretty ugly gravel climb up to the top of Signal Knob. So I'm expecting that's kind of like the last major, watt bomb that you might have to drop. I think I will not have watts. I will be lucky to not be doing some hiking up that. In my recon I didn't have to hike it, but my recon I had a lot less time in the legs. And then after that, you descend down Signal Knob. And for me, based upon what time it is, that's all going to be in the dark. And Signal Knob is not ring light. Signal Knob is ring heavy or something like that. It's janky as hell with consequences is the thing about it. Like, it's not just that there's chunk with like fall offs. So my experience on that, descending it, I was expecting the descent to be really fun having climbed it, because climbing it, it's pretty fun. There's some parts where you have to walk, but it's not like that terrifying. But I found descending it to be less rewarding. The parts where, I like would ride a section, I would end up feeling like guilty that I rode that section because it was dangerous. Like I, might clean something that was like a big move, and then afterwards be like, dang, if that had gone wrong, I would be, 30 feet down, having fallen through rocks, and that is not what you want. So, I'm expecting to be slow down Signal Knob and careful. That point in my day, it's not like I'm going for the FKT. I just want to check this off, finish it, be healthy at the end of it. So, I will expect to be taking that somewhat gently. I don't want to walk the whole thing, but if that's what it takes, that's what it will take. So anyway, that's where I am. Glad that we're on this side now. Hopefully the GoPro footage, with the sun behind the ridge comes better than when I was like riding into the sun. We'll see. This is probably not the most impressive GoPro footage in terms of the actual riding. As I mentioned, this is kind of like amongst the less technical sections. It's been, if anything, I wouldn't quite call it flowy, but not too bad. You've seen there's been like a couple little kickers that I've had to walk, but largely it's been riding downhill. All right, hopefully this turns out good.
All right, see you at the end.
All right.
Be safe. Take your time, honey. No rush.